What's up, cooks? Welcome to the Cart Kitchen. I am the Cart Chef, and today we are cooking up a brand new video with all the leaked cards that just dropped online. There's been a bunch of content already covered on them, but I need to do it as well, so let's get into it. All the cards are on the screen. We're going to go through them each one by one. There was also a promo leak as well with all the new promo cards for the next promo drop, so we're going to go through those as well. It's 5 additionals, but what we're going to do is we're going to start with the trainer cards, so the supporters and tool cards that are coming out, and it'll give us a better idea of how good some of these Pokemon might actually be with some of these new trainers. So we're going to start with the first one, and it's going to be Cyrus. So Cyrus reads supporter card, obviously, so once per turn. Switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon that has damage on it into the active spot. So this is basically Sabrina, but targeted. But it can only target a Pokemon on the bench that is damaged, which is really, really good. So it's kind of like a give and take here in regards to how good it is in comparison to Sabrina. I think right off the bat this is already a lot better, but I do feel like there's certain decks that it fits way better in. For instance, cards that or decks, sorry, that play Druddigon, Greninja. So those two cards are already being played in a bunch of decks, more specifically the Gyarados deck. This Cyrus card is going to be super duper strong in that deck. Any deck that snipes, so Hitmonlee, Zebstrika, Lumineon, which all have spots in the current meta that we have before the drop of A2 here. So this card is going to be really, really good. It's also going to be good for super duper late game, because one of the things that Sabrina doesn't have is the ability that when you have a huge attack that goes into a Pokemon with a lot of HP, whereas on the next turn you would be able to knock them out, all you would simply have to do is retreat, and then you can't really Sabrina it back out if you have more than one Pokemon on the bench. Whereas now there's no way of like really escaping that, so it's gonna really like completely change the game once, like for instance, a Mewtwo hits something like a Gyarados for 150. It's gonna have 30 left. If you can't knock out the Mewtwo on the following turn, you're going to have to retreat it. But if your opponent has a Cyrus, it doesn't matter. They're just going to bring it out and knock you out anyway. So this card is super duper strong, and it's going to change a lot of stuff. So let's move on. The next one is a tool card. It's called Rocky Helmet. Pardon me. Something on my tongue. Rocky Helmet reads, if the Pokemon this card is attached to in the active spot is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, do 20 damage to that attacking Pokemon. So basically, why put in this on any one of your Pokemon in the active spot, it turns into a Druddigon. So basically, it basically gives the rough skin effect to any other Pokemon. Or what you can do is you can just attach this to a Druddigon, and then when your opponent attacks into your Druddigon, they're not only going to be doing 20 from rough skin, but 20 from Rocky Helmet, which means a total of 40 damage for free. That's super duper strong. So this is another card I think is going to do really well in like Druddigon, Greninja base shells, and as well as even maybe like, I don't know if Poliwrath will do super good with it, but it would be interesting to put this in a Druddigon Poliwrath deck, quite possibly. But the thing I'm more interested is kind of looking at shells that might want to remove Druddigon now and have a different lead Pokemon, and then put this on the lead Pokemon to kind of get that difference maker in breakpoints for attacks and HP. So it'd be really cool. I'm definitely going to be putting this in a lot of decks. Next one is not the best one. This is the one I dislike the most out of all the leaks that we got. It's the Loomberry. At the At the end of each turn, the Pokemon this card is attached to, if it's affected by any special conditions, it recovers from all of them, and then you discard this card. So it's kind of good. I mean, I don't really know how strong special condition decks are going to be going forward. We already have cards that obviously play things like sleep, paralysis is very few and far between. We obviously have poison in decks like Weezin. They're not the best decks. They might be getting a little bit better with the addition of some new cards that were leaked. So maybe this is, but I feel like you're most likely especially in a 20 card deck, you're most likely going to be picking Rocky Helmet or the next item card, tool card over this one. So let's get into that. The Giant Cape. The Pokemon this card is attached to gets 20 plus HP. So I think this is probably going to be like the most popular pick out of all the tool cards, to be completely honest. It's going to help so much for specific breakpoints. It's also going to counteract any Druddigons that you're attacking into, basically nullifying it. It's kind of like I give myself 20, but you take 20 away kind of thing. This is also going to be super duper strong and decks that want to have a really good lead Pokemon. Something like Executor being able to have 180 HP is going to be absolutely insane. And I don't think the Celebi deck, with all the cards that we've currently seen, is going to really change at all, except for maybe something like this. Being able to put this in the deck and not only put it on Executor to make it 180 HP tank, but on something like a Celebi, make it 150. Maybe you can start throwing blues in that deck so it doesn't get one-shotted by Mewtwo's. I think that deck's going to get a lot better simply just because of this card. It's also going to be really good on Pokemon that already have a lot of HP. For instance, Venusaur might see a resurgence because now it's not only 190, it's going to be 210 HP. It's going to be super duper hard to knock that guy out. And then just decks like Charizard and Gyarados with 180, giving them 200 HP, trying to help them work around other one-shot decks might be really, really significant. Also, just on like standard tank decks, even just putting this on maybe something like a Druddigon might help. Something like a Moltres, giving it 140 to 160 might help fire decks a ton. So I actually think this is going to be one of the best tool cards that we get from the set. Although we only got to see 3. This is the last one that was leaked. So we don't know which other ones might be coming out, if any at all. But we're going to move on to the last item card or trainer card. It's a supporter and it's called Volkner, and it says choose one of your Electivire or Luxray, attach 2 energy from your discard pile to one of those Pokemon. So obviously, because of this card, we know we're getting an Luxray and we know we're getting an Electivire. We actually have an Electivire to show later. We don't have the Luxray, but nevertheless, this is pretty cool. You get to, it's another way to ramp, and it does say discard pile for all those who don't know. When you retreat or get knocked out or have an effect on a card that says discard an energy, it goes to the discard pile. Even though it's not a physical card, it's still there. And so obviously this is why the effect makes sense. But I kind of like this because it actually works with a couple of cards that we already currently have and that we're going to see coming up in this video. And we already have Lieutenant Surge, so of course you can't play Volkner and Lieutenant Surge in the same deck, or you can, but you can't play them on the same turn. So it'd be really interesting in like maybe Raichu decks, because Electabuzz also works with Surge as well. So you can do things like take 2 energy, put them on, or you can like ramp 2 energy from your Surge onto your Electabuzz, evolve it, and then the next turn put 2 more energies from Volkner onto the Electabuzz, and then giving your Electivire 4 energy. And actually what we'll do, because the next ones I want to look at anyways are the promos, so there's 5 of them here, and as you can see, one of them is Electivire. We'll look at Electivire first, just so you kind of have an understanding of like what I'm actually talking about. So Electivire says it's 2 electric energy, excite and voltage. It does 40 plus. If this Pokemon has at least 2 extra electric energy attached to this Pokemon, it does, I want to say it says 60 more damage. But I could be wrong, but it does look like 60 to me. It also kind of looks like 10. It's very blurry, this one. The rest of them aren't really that blurry, but this one is. But either way, being able to get 2 energy on it from Surge onto the Electabuzz before you evolve it, and then 2 extra from the Volkner once it evolves into Electivire, it is a 2-turn play, but it is pretty like, it's going to be pretty easy to do if I'm being completely honest. And I think we're still going to want to be playing things like Electabuzz anyways, because of things like Gyarados and Magikarp. But anyways, the other promo cards is the first EX of the promos that we see is called Cresselia EX. It's a basic for 140 HP Psychic type. It has 2 retreat costs, with an attack for 2 psychic, 1 colorless for 80 damage, and it says for its ability Lunar Plumage. Whenever you attach a psychic energy from your energy zone to this Pokemon, heal 20 damage from this Pokemon. So a lot of people keep comparing this to Lapras EX, and I think it makes sense, but this card's actually a lot better, and I'll explain why. So yes, they both have 140 HP, and they both have a 3 energy attack that it does 80 damage. But right away, we can also see that this card has 2 retreat costs, which is already better than the Lapras. And yes, it heals 20 damage from itself, just like Lapras. However, Lapras has to wait until it has all the energies in order to attack, in order to heal itself. Whereas this card, not only will you get 20 heal from a manual attachment, but in a Gardevoir deck, because Gardevoir takes it from the energy zone and puts it onto your Pokemon, it's also going to heal for that, which means you're going to heal 20 from your Gardevoir, 20 from a manual, and potentially 20 from another Gardevoir. That's 60 damage each turn, and you're doing it while you're building the card, which means this could tank, take some damage, and then over each turn, you're actually healing it for free pretty much. And then you can also play potions to heal it even more. So this card might actually not be that bad. It actually might be played in Mewtwo decks or some other type of Psychic Shell to be a tank. The one thing about the Mewtwo deck is, though, you would have to put energy on this, and I don't really know if I like that so much, but we do know Mewtwo, or Baby Mewtwo, did act as a tank quite often in Mewtwo decks at one point, so this might just replace that and other cards in the deck currently, and it might be pretty well. But this is probably only going to come out like a week or 2, maybe even 3 weeks after the actual release of the A2 set, because these are promo cards. So I don't know if these are dropping at the same time, or they're going to be like a I think these are going to be promo packs, like the Lapras EX was, but it might be like the Professor Research X Speed and stuff like that, but I don't think so. But anyways, we'll move on. We got Mischievous. All the promo cards, they weren't really good quality online. This is the best I can get. It says Mischievous, and I'm pretty sure this evolves as well, and its attack is Confuse Ray for 1 Psychic. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused, so this just confirms basically that confusion's coming to the game, as it hasn't been there previously. We also know that Burn's supposed to come. We haven't seen any cards with Burn on it, so they might wait an entire another set to release Burn, but who knows. Not much to say more about that, but this card's pretty cool, Skarmory. So Skarmory is cool because it's actually a Johto Pokemon, which means it's not a Gen 4 Pokemon, so we do know obviously other Pokemon other than the Gen 4 are going to be released, and it has 80 damage for a basic, very similar to like a Hitmonlee. For 1 Steel Energy, Metal Arms does 20 plus if this Pokemon has a Pokemon tool card attached to it. This attack does 70 more damage is what it kind of looks like. So if this Pokemon has a tool card attached to it. Okay, so yes, so if you have a tool card attached to it, it does 70 more damage, so 90 for 1. That is absolutely insane. That's actually going to be really, really good. Even if it just has to be in a steel type shell. If you put this in a colorless shell as well, it's going to do super duper good. I mean, if you can build a deck good enough to make sure that you're maximizing the amount of item cards you can get in your hand, I think 1 for 90 is going to be absolutely insane, especially since you consider you can put a Rocky Helmet on this, which means if your opponent attacks you, you're also doing an additional 20 on top of that 90. If you're wearing a giant cape, it has 100 HP and is doing 90 damage. This card's actually going to be absolutely insane in my opinion, and I think it's one of the better cards that we've seen. So now we're going to get into this list that's on the screen. We're going to try to go in order here, And so I'm going to go down and just so that I can click on the correct ones here. As you can see, we got the Turtwig, or whatever, however you say it. We already knew about that. We knew about the Leafeon, and we knew about Infernape's basic. I forget his name. But we're going to get into the Infernape because, yes, we have an Infernape EX. And this card is pretty cool. So 170 is obviously a stage 2, has 0... That's right, 0 retreat cost, and it has the Flare Blitz attack for 2 fire energy, does 140 damage, but then it says discard all fire energy from this Pokemon. So there's a couple of ways that this card is really good, in my opinion. One, you can obviously play this with Moltres, so you can attach energy to Moltres and then ramp onto Infernape. And then bring your Infernape in, attack for 140, discard all the energy on the following turn, you retreat, bring the Moltres back out. But I actually think that's kind of slow, so I'm not really sure if that's exactly the way it's going to be. I actually think this might work better with a different lead Pokemon than Moltres, because 2 energy is not a lot. However, if this like replaces Charizard and you're playing Infernape Arcanine, then I could obviously say that Moltres should be in that deck. But I honestly think this might work pretty well with a Druddigon and something like a Rocky Helmet, and then into Infernape is 180 damage basically, because 20 from the Druddigon that you would get because your opponent attacked into it, and 20 more from the Rocky Helmet, and then 140 from the Infernape. And if you happen to get like 2 Infernapes online, which is going to be really hard to do because it's stage 2, you can just load up 2 in a row and then just retreat and then attack and retreat and attack. But it's pretty cool because, I mean, 140 is a super solid amount for 2 energy. This is like way better than Raichu, in my opinion. Yes, Raichu, you can hit 2 turns in a row if you're Surgeon and stuff like that, but I think this card's actually really strong. And I think, so they're like, again, you can either pair it with Moltres as your lead or Druddigon as your lead, or in the Moltres build, you can put a Rocky Helmet on the Moltres and make up for that anyways, which I think a lot of people will probably end up doing. But I actually really like this card, and I will like to see if this just replaces Charizard decks, at least replacing the Charizard in an Arcanine Charizard deck. Excuse me. Or maybe it's just a deck on its own. Maybe we don't need Charizard and maybe we don't need Arcanine, because it does 140, which is more than the Arcanine's attack and less energy. It does take longer to evolve, but it's less energy and the same time evolve than the Charizard. Sorry, I completely blanked there. But we're going to move on, and the next card is actually super duper cool, and it's a Manaphy, and it's a basic water type. With 50 HP, this doesn't evolve into anything. It's its own card. It has a 1 retreat cost. Is weak to electric, obviously, because it's water. And it has the attack for 1 water energy, Ocean's Gift, or Oceanic Gift. It says choose 2 of your benched Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, take a water energy from your energy zone and attach it to this Pokemon. So, just like Dialga, this is a energy ramper that doesn't specifically ramp to a specific type of Pokemon, which is really good. Which the first thing I thought of, obviously, is trying to put this and Dialga in the same deck. Now, of course, this takes water specifically, and Dialga takes metal specifically to do the attack. So you would have to play 2 energy in a deck with Manaphy and Dialga in the same deck. But it would be pretty cool. But honestly, I think this is just going to go into probably almost every single water shell. In fact, I'm going to make a bold prediction right now, and I think the best water decks going forward are going to be playing Manaphy, Misty, and Vaporeon. I think those 3 cards as a package together as energy manipulation in some way, shape, or form are going to be played in super duper powerful shells. In fact, I think 2 Vaporeon, 2 Manaphy, 2 Misty, and then whatever trainers you need to put in the deck with 2 Palkia EX is going to be super duper strong. Because you're going to be able, if you get 2 turns of this off, you get to load up potentially 2 bench Pokemon, so your Eevee or your Palkia. Do it again. That's 4 energy across 2 turns, and then plus a Misty. You've basically filled up one entire Palkia EX, most likely. Got the 150 attack damage off, and then take all the other energy that you ramped anyways and move it with your Vaporeon. I actually think Manaphy, Vaporeon, Palkia EX deck is going to be absolutely broken, and I know it's probably a bold prediction, but that is my prediction nonetheless. So let's move on. The next card is a Magnezone. So yes, we are getting the evolution of Magneton, and it is a stage 2. 140 HP electric type Pokemon with 2 retreat, and it's weak to fighting. And just to note, you're going to see every single pretty much stage 2 single price Pokemon that is leaked all have 140 HP. I don't know if that was something they purposefully did. I kind of like it and I kind of don't. And the reason I don't like it is because it's kind of like, it almost seems like lazy, like, just make all the stage 2 Pokemon that are single prize 140 HP. So they all have the same HP range, which is kind of like weird in my opinion, to be honest. But I also do like it because with a giant cape, this gets 20 plus HP, which means we're going to have a lot of single price Pokemon in the game with 160 HP, which is a super duper important breakpoint. So I kind of like it, which means if they haven't taken any damage, Mewtwo can't one-shot them unless they're playing with the Giovanni. So that is pretty cool. But let's get into its attack. So as you know, the Magneton can ramp energy from the energy zone with its own ability, and it takes 4 energy to attack. However, this one only takes 3 energy to attack, and it's 1 electric, 2 colorless for Thunder Blast, 110, and then it says discard 1 electric energy from this Pokemon, which means if you fully load up your Magneton for free, by the way, because Magneton ramps its own energy for free, you get 2 attacks in a row. Super duper good. For 140 HP, potentially 160, that's super duper strong. You're 2-shotting any Pokemon no matter what. Pardon me, I have an indigestion here. But this also pairs very well with Volkner, because Volkner, as you remember, says take 2 energy, electric energy that were in your discard pile and put them onto your Electivire or your Luxray, which means this card, after it discards, takes those 2 energies from Volkner on the next turn and puts them onto your Electivire for free. Which means not only did you get all free energy on your Magnezone because of Magneton, but then you got potentially all energy on your Electivire for free from your Volkner. So that's super duper good. I think that deck's going to be really good too. It really depends how strong Electivire's attack really is. It was really hard to read, to be completely honest. And it also depends how strong Luxray's attacks are, because we haven't even got to see a Luxray. But I think that's super good. And not only that, but this card alone, Magnezone, and Electivire for instance, these cards can actually be played, or at least Magnezone on its own, can be played in any deck. It can be played in any deck whatsoever. It can be played in a fighting deck with no electric, water deck with no electric, any deck with no electric energy at all, because Magneton will ramp energy regardless if you're playing the energy or not, which means you can play any deck you want, play any energy you want, get all free energy on your Magneton, evolve into a Magnezone at some point, and you have a fully loaded free 110 attacker. So that is super cool. And so that is something I'm going to be looking forward to, and to put it in and tech it into certain decks. Yes, it is a stage 2, and you're not really supposed to tech in stage 2s, but it's pretty cool that you can literally, like a colorless Pokemon, pretty much put this in every single deck. And I think that is going to be a really cool opportunity to build some really cool and interesting decks. But let's move on. So we are getting a Gallade. So this is Gallade EX. And for those who don't know, of you that don't know, Ralts and Kirlia, as you can see on the screen, evolve into either the Gardevoir or the Gallade. Okay, we already have a Ralts and Kirlia, and obviously a Gardevoir, but now we have a new Ralts and a new Kirlia, and they both have colorless attacks. And the reason for that is because the Gallade that we're getting is a fighting type. So, because he's a fighting type, it makes a lot of sense that the Psychic Ralts and the Psychic Curlia have colorless requirement for their own attacks, which means what's really cool is not just the Glade, and we'll get to it in a minute, is this line in and of itself can be played to be used either for a Gardevoir deck or a Glade deck, which is really cool. So we might actually see the old Ralts and Curlia disappear, and just these ones just being played. I think they all have the same HP and retreat costs as the other ones, so I'm not really sure. This one actually, the Ralts has teleport, which is the same as Abra, and it allows you to bounce this Pokemon back onto your bench after you attack, and then slap does 20 damage. It is what it is. But the cool thing here is the Glade. So let's get into Glade. So Glade EX obviously is stage 2, fighting type, 170, has 1 retreat cost, and is weak to Psychic, and it has a 2 fighting energy requirement for Energized Blade, and it does 70 damage. This attack does 20 more damage to each for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So basically the exact same attack as Psychic for Alakazam, for Jinx, and the Executor from Mythical Island. Now, this is actually doing less damage than the Alakazam, so I'm not really sure if it's even worth playing. It does have more HP, but it does give up 2 prizes. It takes less energy to start attacking, so there might be a bit of a good payoff there. Plus, if you play this in the same deck as Lucario and you're playing 2 of them and they're both online, you're actually doing more damage than your Alakazam would be. So it will be interesting to see if this actually gets any play. I don't think it's going to be meta defining. I think it's going to feel a lot like Alakazam, where you're able to really beat these super duper top tier decks, but you're just not going to be able to do it as often as consistently as the best decks in the game, in my opinion. So let's move on, and the next one is Togekiss. So Togekiss, for those who don't remember, we got the Cynthia card that released through the trailer, and it said that on the turn you play Cynthia, your Togekiss and or Garchomp gets plus 50 additional attack. And now we finally get to see the Togekiss stage 2 with 140 HP, just like all the other ones I was telling you about. 1 retreat cost, which is super duper good. It's weak to Steel, because this is usually a fairy type. We don't have fairy types yet in the game, but it's weak to Steel. And it has the Overdrive Smash attack for 2 Psychic, does 60 damage, and then it says, during your next turn, this Pokemon's Overdrive Smash attack does plus 60 damage. So it does 60 damage, and then the next turn, the exact same attack does 120. Now, that's really good, because you're 2-shot in every Pokemon in the game at this point, okay? And not only that, if you're playing a Giovanni, you're 2-shot in Venusaur. And if you're playing, obviously, Cynthia on your first turn, you're doing 110. On your second turn, you're doing 170 potentially. So you might be actually on your second turn, if you've already knocked a Pokemon out, and then they bring in a big guy, you might be doing 170 to a Pokemon. And there's a lot of new Pokemon with 170 HP that have come into the game. The 180s you might not be able to knock out, but I think at this point, this card for a single price card is going to be super duper strong. Will it be meta defining? I don't know. I actually feel like this is the one card that I've seen from the single price cards that actually might have like a legit stance in the metagame in standard format, because it does so much potential damage. For 2 energy, being able to do 110 or 170 on the following turn is super duper strong. So this might be really good. This with Mythical Slabs, I think you're going to be able to get into this pretty quickly. Minimal energy. You won't have to play Gardevoir. You might be able to play this with the Cresselia EX and tank with the Cresselia. Load that up. And then this is only 2 energy. So like you can build up one Pokemon and build up this one once you finally evolve it, right? So this, I think Togekiss might be really, really strong. But the next card is kind of like a filler. I'm not really sure if Drifloon evolves It's a basic Pokemon with 50 HP with 1 retreat. It has an attack for 1 psychic and does 10 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 20 less damage from attacks. I don't think this really matters. Like, you already have 50 HP. Like, you're going to get knocked out no matter what. Like, let's be honest. I don't think you're stalling out any games long enough with this card. So it kind of feels like a filler. And I do think this evolves, and I'm just not sure if it evolves in this gen or not. And even if it does or doesn't, the actual stats on this card are absolutely horrendous, completely, and it feels like a filler card as for right now. Next, we have the Riolu, which we already saw the Lucario. I'm not going to talk about this too much. It has 1 energy. It has 60 HP, which is really good. 1 energy does 20 damage, kind of standard. And then it plays on curve with the Lucario for 2 energy for 40 on the Lucario. And then once it's online, it's actually doing 60, which means over 2 turns, it would be doing 80 damage. So that's okay. And then the Murkrow, which evolves into the Honchkrow that we know about, pretty standard 60 HP, which is actually really good. It's kind of the HP that you want to see on something that evolves into something else. And then it has the Peck for 1 energy doing 20 damage. But then we get into our next EX, which is Weavile EX, the Stage 1 Dark Pokemon for 140. Again, we're seeing 140 everywhere. It seems like such a lazy thing to do. Like, everyone has the exact same HP. But anyways, we're moving on. With 1 retreat cost, and for some reason, like, all the Dark Pokemon here are weak to grass, and I don't know why. I don't know what its actual typing is in the games, or if it actually has like a super effectiveness into grass types or not, but it seems really weird. But anyways, let's read its attack. For 1 Dark, Scratching Nails does 30 plus if your opponent's active Pokemon has damage on it already. This attack does 40 more damage. So it basically has to be attacked, and then you do 70 damage for 1 energy. So I don't know. Is this good? It could be. It pairs really well with a lot of Dark Pokemon. I just don't know if it's worth playing. With a 1 energy attacker, you're usually trying to be super aggressive. I don't think 30 into 70 is, maybe it is. It's basically, yeah, you know what? If you're doing 50, it's basically doing 50 and 50 with Primate, but on 140 body. Plus, you can also pair this with Weezin, who does poison, right? And is also a 1 energy attacker. You can also pair this with Honchkrow for 2 energy, is doing 50 damage to any 1 Pokemon that it wants to. So that's pretty good. So this does have partners in the game. I just don't know if it's really going to be super duper relevant. But I guess if you think of it, over the course of 2 turns, doing 100 damage to whichever Pokemon you're attacking into, as long as it stays in the active, feels very similar to Primate doing 50 and 50. So maybe it actually is better than I think. And then we get into Darkrai, and I'm completely disappointed in this card. Like, Darkrai is such a super cool and good Pokemon in the games, and in the regular TCG, this card has always kind of been like a really good card, no matter how it was printed. This is a basic with 110, which is decent for a basic. Like, it's probably I think it's the high. No, it's not the highest. I think Mewtwo and Snorlax are obviously higher, but it has like Onix level HP or Weezin level HP for a basic, so that's decent. Again, weak to grass. I'm not sure what the whole weak to grass thing is, but whatever. And then its retreat cost is 2, and then it has the Dark Void attack for 3 energy, only does 60 damage, which then puts your opponent's active Pokemon to sleep. There's no way to ramp for Dark Energy right now, and so it's going to take super long to get this online. You would much rather just play something like a Wigglytuff that either one will take just as long pretty much, has higher attack, higher HP, and can also be ramped onto from things like Manaphy now, and as well as the Dialga EX. So I think Darkrai literally sees 0 play, and it's just completely filler, which is a shame because I love Darkrai. And then we get into the Garchomp line. This is just the 2 cards. It's 60 HP for the Gible, 90 HP for the Gabite. The Gabite confirms that the attack is water and fighting, but then we get into the actual Garchomp, and this is where things get really cool and interesting because Cynthia's Pokemon are really strong. We already saw the Togekiss. This is the Garchomp, Stage 2 Dragon type, 140 again, 1 energy retreat, 0 weakness, of course, because it's a dragon, and then it has the attack Dragon Claw for 100 damage and only requires 2 energy. Now, they are 2 different energy, but This can actually be paired with Manaphy as well, because Manaphy doesn't have to attach to a water type, which means you can use a water energy, attach it to your Manaphy, and then you're kind of making up for the fact that you might poor energy zone energies. That's what I'm trying to say, because it might all be you might end up just seeing things like fighting type in your energy zone, which kind of sucks. But if you're playing a Manaphy and it's already loaded up with the energy, then you can just ramp onto your Garchomp. So that's something you can do. And so for 2 energy, 100 damage is really strong. And then for 2 energy, doing 150 if you play the Cynthia is really strong. I think we're going to see a bunch of really cool single price decks being able to do a lot of damage. Magnezone being able to do 110 and 110 2 turns in a row. And then this card being able to do 100 and 100, or 100 and 150, or 150 and 150 is super strong. Togekiss being able to do 60 into 120, which is 180. Like, we're going to see a huge amount of single price cards, and I don't know if they're ever going to be meta relevant, but definitely in no EX. No EX format is going to be completely shift on its head, and these cards might actually be meta relevant, to be honest, because they're super duper strong. And even if they get knocked out, if you've knocked out a 2 prize and they've only knocked out a 1, you'd have super duper good trade-offs. And with 140 plus a giant cape, all these 160 HP Pokemon are going to be really hard to knock out anyway. So I kind of like where they've gone with this set. Now, the next one we have is Porygon Z, who evolves from Porygon 2, who evolves from Porygon. Now, we do get to see the Porygon and Porygon 2, but there are HP and all that, it's kind of useless. Like, there's no point of looking at it. So I'm only going to show this guy another stage 2 with 140 HP, again, with 2 retreat costs, and its attack is really cool. So it's 3 colorless for Buggy Beam, does 80 damage. Change the type of the next energy that will be generated from your opponent to one of the following at random, and it's basically every single type in the game. So if your opponent is playing something like water and they're only playing water energy, and then you attack with this, you might throw something like a fire or an electric or a dark or whatever, right? Because it's going to change it at random. Now the thing is it could actually just change it back to the original. Because it's obviously random, and obviously the original is going to be on the card, right? So it might go from water to water. Now, it's obviously you have a higher chance of getting any of the other ones because, but it also has the same chance actually of getting any of those cards. But there are 6 other different options other than water. So it's going to be an interesting and cool. I don't think this is broken in any way, shape, or form. I think this is going to be a really cool, interesting cooking type of card for like control decks and stuff like that. And I'm definitely going to build with it because I love control decks. I think it's one of my favorite decks. And I think like viewership shows that control decks get the most views. And so not only do I like control decks, but obviously the viewers do too. So it's going to be an interesting thing to do. And obviously this compare with things like Manaphy and Dialga as well. So we're going to move on to Bidoof, right? Is that who it is? Bidoof? Yes. Bidoof. So Bidoof is a basic Pokemon, and this guy actually evolves. We haven't seen its evolution, and we don't know if it's going to be EX or not. I'm not really sure. I don't think it will be, because this guy's attack's actually kind of strong, which is kind of weird. Like, how strong is the next version, like its evolution, going to be? So it's a 60 HP, and it has the attack Super Fang. For 2 colorless, have your opponent's active Pokemon's remaining HP rounded down. So rounded down basically means like if you've done see, I don't know if it rounds down before it cuts it in half, or if it cuts it in half then rounds down. That's the only thing. So if it's 180, obviously it just goes to 90. If it's 190, like a Venusaur for instance, it goes to, it would be 80. It would technically be what? Trying to do the math here. Why can't I do the math? 95, but you can't do 95, so it has to round it down. But does it remove 90 or does it go to 90? So like that's the question that I have. I'm not really sure. So, but either way, being able to do almost upwards to 100 damage with this, and then of course you're going to want to retreat it out because then it's only going to do half of the half. So you're probably going to want to retreat that out after you attack with this, and then just finish off the Pokemon with whatever other Pokemon you have. But this is pretty crazy. Being the ability to be able to do 90 damage for 2 energy with this Pokemon against those Pokemon with 180 like Charizard. Blastoise, Gyarados, which are all C play, to be honest, will be pretty super duper interesting to see if this actually is played or if it's teched into a lot of decks as like a one of, maybe, because that's a lot of damage, like, to be honest, but it really depends how good its evolution is. But we're going to move on to Staraptor. This card is 140 HP, obviously, like every other Stage 2 single prize. Single retreat, which is really good. And then it has the 3 energy colorless attack called Clutch, and it does 80 damage. And it has the exact same effect as Arbok and Galvantula. So basically, your Pokemon, the defendant Pokemon on your opponent's side of the board can't retreat. And this is really good. So first of all, I think this is better than Arbok, and I think this is better than Galvantula. Yes, it's a Stage 2, but you can also ramp into it with Dialga. So this is another Dialga build. Potentially even Manaphy if you want to play it in a water show. And it's doing 80 and 80. So it's doing a minimum of 160 over 2 turns into the exact same Pokemon. That is a lot. That's a huge difference. Okay. 160 is going to knock out Executor, AX, and anything less. And then if you pair in things like, obviously, Giovanni's, those all build up and make a huge difference as well. You can also play this in Druddigon builds if you want, so that you can get the additional energy there, or damage there, sorry. Or you can play it with Dialga, like I said, ramp tank with that guy, put a Rocky Helmet on him, get a bunch of damage onto the opponent's Pokemon, and then you're basically two-shotting whatever Pokemon you come and do. So this is going to be a really cool build. And again, maybe meta-relevant, to be honest. Like, Arbok did really well in the Genetic Apex meta. Arbok and Galvantula didn't do that great in Mythical Island, but Staraptor might actually do really good in the Space-Time Smackdowns. And then the next one is Rotom, and this is a electric type Pokemon with 70 HP. It's a basic. It doesn't evolve. It says for 1 energy, do 20 damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon has a tool card attached to it, this attack does 30 more damage. So I think this is going to be pretty good, actually. So yes, 20 sucks. 20 damage sucks, but I think Pokemon tool cards are probably going to be played in every single deck, if I'm being completely honest. I think Druddigon decks, everyone's going to add Rocky Helmets. I think any deck with a huge tank wants to be able to put the additional HP on it with Giant Cape. So I think, like, if your people are putting the Giant Capes, this attack really only does 30, but it's still plus 10. It's still, like, whatever. Like, it's still better. So I don't know. It depends, right? If the 3 tool cards that we saw are the only tool cards we get, then this might not be that good, because Rocky Helmet will do 20 to you, and then you're doing an additional 30, so you're really only doing plus 10 again. And same thing with the Giant Cape. And then the Loom Berry, I don't think anyone's going to be playing, let's be honest. So I don't know if this card's actually good or not, because you're doing plus 10, so you might as well just do you might as well just keep playing Farfetch, right? Like, at this point, even though it's an electric type and it has colorless, I don't know. No, I don't like it. I don't think it's going to do any good. And then that's it, actually. I think we looked at all of them. So, final thoughts here. I'm pretty sure I like Infernape. I don't know if it's going to be better in a Moltres or a Druddigon deck. I think I actually would rather play it with Druddigon personally to get those breakpoints for when he's actually attacking. I think it's a lot more consistent than trying to find a tool card, the Rocky Helmet, and put on a Moltres. I don't think you actually need Moltres either in this deck. It only requires 2 energy. Yes, for the second time you want to attack with it, possibly, but I'm not convinced you absolutely need a Moltres in this deck unless you're playing it alongside Arcanine. Manaphy, I think, is really cool. I think it's going to be played again in every single water shell. Why not? You can put a giant cape on this guy, and he has 70 HP. He'll last a couple more turns. And then you'll be able to energy ramp like crazy. Mix this with Misties and Vaporeon. Your Palkia EX is going to be able to do 150 and multiple times in a row, which is super strong. I actually love Magnezone, I love Garchomp, and I love Togekiss. I think they all have a really good shot of being in the meta. Same with Staraptor, actually. So all the Stage 2 single prize Pokemon that we've seen have a pretty good shot of doing well in the meta. And at least doing super... They're going to do really well, I think, in my opinion, in no EX. I think in Standard, they all have a pretty good shot. But only time will tell. I'm not sold on Gallade. It feels like Alakazam. Stage 2, less energy, but less attack. With Lucario, it does more. You can't play Mythical Slabs, really, because you're probably playing it in a fighting shell. I just don't think it does that well, to be honest. I don't think Gallade does that well. I also don't think Weavile EX does that well either. I think both of those EX Pokemon are not great. Cresselia EX, I don't know. People keep comparing this to Lapras EX. I actually think this is a lot better than Lapras EX for many reasons. The ones that we've already discussed, I'm not going to discuss them again. But I actually think this is pretty decent. And so we'll just have to see where it's played. Like, do you play it in Mewtwo? Because then you have to put energies on this, so you're not putting them on the Mewtwo. So probably not. But is it played in something maybe like a Togekiss deck or something else? Maybe an Alakazam deck. Right, like you played in Alakazam, or you could tank with this, play it in Alakazam, and maybe this time now you can play Gardevoir because you're tanking, so you have time to actually build up all the other guys. I'm not sure, but I'm excited, very happy. I cannot wait to make a ton of builds. I'm going to be doing Manaphy, Vaporeon decks 100%. I'm going to be playing Magnezone in every single type of deck because it doesn't have to be played in electric decks. Obviously, Dialga, I'm going to be ramping on to so many different Pokemon. Staraptor, I'm going to be putting Mew and Tauros builds. I'm going to be building Dialga and Golem from Genetic Apex. I know that. I can't wait to do a Leafeon deck and do this little loop thing that I've been talking about. Togekiss and Garchomp for Cynthia decks. They're obviously not going to be played in the same deck, but we're obviously going to be playing two different builds. I already built like some mock decks. I built like a Volkner the Surge deck with two Magnezone lines, two Electivire, and then one line of Raichu as kind of like a obviously I didn't build it in app, but I built it myself and posted it on my YouTube. I can't wait to try Pachirisu as well. And yeah, I think that's it. Super duper excited and can't wait for these cards to come out. So anyways, with that being said, leave a comment in the comment section below, like, subscribe, and share, and as always, keep cooking.